If you need some coins for the Trophy Titans promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code REMA, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. In today's video guys, I'm going to be showing you some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the best wide formations in FIFA 23, this being the 4-3-3 fourth variation. Now I primarily cover a lot of narrow formations on this game, but that is what a lot of people use. So sometimes to counteract those narrow formations, it's better to use a wider formation because it does catch your opponents off guard, which is what I'm hoping this formation will help you guys to do. Now before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics, for the defensive style, as always I suggest you guys use balanced. This is because it gives you the greatest control over your defense, where you're able to press when you need to press, but you're also able to drop off and be more passive and conservative when you need to be. So balance is very important in my opinion, especially at the high end, because pressure tactics are very one-dimensional and will get you caught out against those better players. Moving on to the defensive width guys, because this is one of the wider formations, we do defend in a slightly wider way than we would with other formations. So we have the width on 48, which is just slightly higher than I would use for more narrow formations. This is just so we have better width when we are defending, and it makes it easier to play down the wings when we get the ball back because we don't have to wait for the team to spread out as much again. Moving on to the depth guys, I'm just using this on 52 with this formation. This is just a really balanced defensive line where we're not sitting too deep, so we're not always getting pinned back, but we're not really high up the pitch either, to the point where we can just get through balled and destroyed. So 52 depth, just very balanced, very basic, nothing really specific with this number. You can get away with changing it a bit if you would like to. Now moving on to build-up play guys, I suggest using balance. This is because it is the most controlled form of build-up, where you can play fast when you need to and you can slow it down when you need to as well. It's also the most suited for all types of FIFA 23 gameplay you might experience, whether that is fast gameplay or slow gameplay. So balance is just the way to go with so many formations in this game. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. The reason for this is it makes your attackers bunch up against the defenders, making it very easy to do those really overpowered isolation plays where you're taking on one player, and it's very easy to create chances as a result. It also makes it possible for your players to give that extra pass option to guarantee the goals in the penalty box. Moving on to the attacking width guys, because this is a wider formation, we do use a higher width than we would use in narrow formation. So 55 width means we've got a nice attacking width, but at the same time it's not really wide to the point where our players are so far apart that we can't link up any passes at all. We don't want to have like a really narrow width with this formation, otherwise it plays a bit like a 4-3-2-1 and there's not really any point in using the 4-3-3. Moving on to players in box guys, we have this on 5, so this is like really balanced, where we can get some players into the box to create chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, these are both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now for the players you want to use guys, because this is a one striker formation, it's important that you do use a nice well-rounded player in the striker position. This is because you have to compensate for the fact that there's one striker instead of 2, so this player needs to be a bit more versatile and do more things. So I suggest going for a nice well-rounded player. This is somebody that can shoot on either foot, somebody with a decent dribbling and passing ability, and somebody that is just all-round decent in their attacking game. You can use a more one-dimensional player like Haaland if you want to, but just know it will restrict your attacking ability, and it will just restrict you to things like crossing and, you know, simple through balls. So I suggest going for a nice well-rounded player to really switch up your attack. Now moving on to the wingers, this is very self-explanatory. You're going to want to use good wingers. Now these are players with like decent skill moves, good pace, good dribbling ability, good crossing ability, good passing ability, and good shooting ability. There's not much to say about the wingers, but just make sure they're good because they're your main outlets in the team. And if you're using slow clunky players, you're going to find it very difficult to create anything at all. Now moving on to the cam guys, you're going to want to use a nice technical player. This is somebody that is really good at controlling the ball, somebody that is nice and agile so they can work all angles for the pass, somebody with a decent shooting ability so if they get the ball on the edge of the box they're able to finish those chances. And yeah, it's very important to have a decent cam, somebody that is not super clunky, somebody that is not really bad at passing, otherwise you're going to find it difficult to create chances as the cam is like the main playmaker in the team. Now moving on to the left centre mid, I like to use a more defensive minded midfielder. This is to keep the midfield nice and balanced. This is somebody that is going to stay back and add defensive support to our team. So you're going to want somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, so you can get the maximum contribution in defence out of this player, but they're not too bothered about attacking. But if you can't get that work rate, just make sure they're a very good defensive player. Now moving on to the right centre mid, we go for a more box to box style midfielder. So we've got a nice balance between the two midfielders here, where we've got a defensive player and a more attacking minded player. The box to box player is going to help from transitioning from defence to attack, and they're going to do a bit of everything. So you're going to want somebody with nice well-rounded stats so they can do everything in the team, and you're also going to want a high work rate if you can get it, so you get the maximum contribution in attack and defence. But don't worry too much if you can't get the work rate spot on. As for the fullbacks, I like to go for a bit of a balance between the two, where I've got Roberto Carlos, who's a bit better on the ball in the left back position but maybe lacks that defensive ability, and we've got Cafu, who's a little bit more defensively solid but maybe lacks the technical on the ball ability. That's just a preference, you guys don't have to copy that if you don't want to. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as meta as you can get them. There's really not too much to say about them, to be honest with you. Now moving on to the player instructions guys, on the striker we just have him on stay central. We have him on stay central because we always need him to be in the central areas where a striker should be. If we have him drifting off to the wings, we're going to have a bit of a Chelsea situation where you've got loads of attacking players but no one there to finish any chances and nobody that is actually going to score goals, you know, a bit like Havertz where he's always on the wing. So we want this player to stay central so he is always in the correct positions. Now we also have him on mixed attack because we don't want to make this player super one-dimensional. If we put him on getting behind, he's always just going to be looking to make runs. He's not going to get involved much with the build-up, and you're going to struggle a little bit in that regard. Mixed attack means this player can sometimes sit a little bit deeper like a false 9 player, and then maybe playing like some of the wingers, and then make a run to get back into the box. You know, it just makes your attack a bit more varied and a bit better as a result. Now moving on to the wingers guys, we actually just leave them on completely default settings. Now the reason we do this is because we don't really want to restrict these wingers all that much. We don't want to tell them to stay like really wide all the time because sometimes we might want them to get more involved in the play. We don't always want them to get into the penalty box because sometimes we might want them to sit out on the wings, you know, and stay on the edge of the box. So just leaving them on the default settings means you get more out of these players as you're not restricting them to specific instructions. So that is what we have on both of the wingers. Now moving on to the cam guys, we have him on stay forward. Now the reason for this is when we win the ball back, this cam is going to sit in a better position up the pitch as a main outlet to retrieve the ball and start attacks. If we have him on basic defensive support, sometimes they can get a little bit too deep, and when we win the ball back, we've only really got a striker to aim for, and it can be very difficult to always make that pass. So having a cam on stay forward adds that extra bridge between defense and attack, and it really is effective guys. Moving on to the left centre mid, the more defensive minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking and cover centre. We have him on stay back while attacking because he's obviously a more defensive minded player, so we do want him to stay back. We don't really want him going forward. Sorry guys. And we also have him on cover centre, so he is covering those central areas and not too bothered about the wings because we've already got two wingers on this side, while two wide players, these being Roberto Carlos and Di Maria. Now moving on to the right centre mid guys, the more box to box style player, we have him on default settings and cover centre. We have him on default settings for kind of like the same reason as the wingers, where we don't really want to restrict this player too much. He has a bit more of a free role. We want him to attack and defend. We want him to do a bit of everything, and we don't want to tell him what he can and cannot do. It's very important not to restrict this player that much. The only thing we have him on is cover centre, so he is covering those central areas to make us a bit more solid through the middle. Now moving on to the fullbacks guys, we just have them on stay back while attacking. The reason for this is it makes us very defensively sound, so we're not always getting through ball down the wing. wing, and we don't really need to commit these players forward, because the main reason I will commit fullbacks forward in a formation is when we're using a more narrow formation and we need to add extra width to the team. Because we've already got the width, because it's a wider formation, we don't really need to commit these players forward. We can keep them on stay back to make us as defensively sound as possible. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-3 fourth variation. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.